Hey there guys, how are you? Welcome back to another awesome video. It's time for another movie review. Today's movie review is going to be of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. But before we continue, I'd like to warn you guys that there's going to be a lot of spoilers happening. We're going to go deep and dive and discuss a couple things, so I'll put a big spoiler warning here at this point. So go pause the video, go watch the movie, and then come back and we can discuss. So, this is obviously the 9th movie in the entire Star Wars saga, and this is the 3rd installment of the new trilogy / Disney trilogy, and we have the Emperor's back, the Emperor's returned, and it's up to basically the Resistance to just stop him once and for all. I actually don't know where to start with this, so I'm just gonna start here. This movie is directed by J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams has come back to the Star Wars franchise, and let's kind of go into that for a moment with this whole, this new Star Wars trilogy and the Disney trilogy and whatnot. So, the thing with this trilogy was, originally, J.J. Abrams was, I think he wanted to obviously do all 3 movies, or something like that to that extent. But basically, Disney's original idea was JJ would do a movie, and then they would have 2 other directors do their own thing, like different styles and all this other stuff. So J.J. Abrams did The Force Awakens, Rian Johnson did The Last Jedi, and originally Colin Trevorrow was supposed to do The Rise of Skywalker, or he was going to call it The Duel of Fates, or something like that. Cool title, but however, having Colin Trevorrow as be your final director, no. Especially, he did Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and that was a complete mess. So, good thing that Disney didn't, they fired him, basically, and they said, you know what, JJ, we need you to save this, because this trilogy has a rough track record right now of either you love it or you hate it, and there's no in-between sort of problem, and that's the thing. Because my opinion, just to kind of discuss and kind of go into this and sort of transition and stuff, is that I love The Force Awakens. I like what J.J. Abrams did. He played it a little bit safe, because obviously J.J. was like, well, we don't want to do what the prequels did, because people didn't like the prequels at first, because now some people are actually like the prequels. So he played it safe, and it was a good way to play it safe, but here's kind of the problem with this, and I'm going to kind of talk about the trilogy, and then we'll go into The Rise of Skywalker as a movie. But with the trilogy, there's 2 faults happening here. Partial fault goes to Disney, and partial fault goes to the Star Wars community, and I'll explain why. So, it's partially Disney's fault because of obviously, by the time you reach the Rise of Skywalker, by the time you reach this movie, some of the stuff they do, you think to yourself, okay, did they really plan this idea, or is this them saying this is our saving grace? Because obviously they had this idea of they're gonna have 3 different directors do each movie. And at first I was like, I liked the idea a bit, but after looking back and seeing how much of it kind of doesn't mesh well, and seeing how the different creative writing went into the trilogy, kind of doesn't help things. Like, when you have stuff that JJ wanted to do and wanted to explore and wanted to dive into, Rian Johnson looked at The Force Awakens and said, well, here's the thing, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, and I don't like that. So we're going to do basically the opposite of what JJ did, and we're going to do this instead. And then once Rian Johnson did that, JJ's like, well, you messed up what I had in mind, whether this was all part of my plan or not. So I feel like that's Disney's fault on saying, hey, we're gonna have 3 different people, and then at the last minute they're like, you know what, JJ, we need your help. And at first I was excited, because JJ coming back could maybe save this whole holy grail. And the reason why I say the Star Wars community, the fan base, is at fault a little bit, and I'm not disrespecting anybody, or any fans out there of Star Wars, because I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I grew up with a lot of stuff involving Star Wars, the movies, the Clone Wars, the video games, and even the merchandise. And even the books. I've been a core fan of Star Wars. But and the community is a great community, but there's that part of that community that really took it too far, where when that part of the community saw the Force Awakens and said, "Oh, I don't like what happened with Force Awakens," Disney said, "All right, we'll change that up. We'll do something different then." That's when Rian Johnson came in and did The Last Jedi. And when that part of the community that hated The Force Awakens also hated The Last Jedi, and it's like there wasn't any, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Anything better. There was no real approval or real, like, joy, because no matter what, if you didn't like how safe The Force Awakens was, then they made The Last Jedi. And if you didn't like what The Last Jedi did, you're not pleasing anyone, really, it seems like. And you had to please the fans. And I feel like that's kind of like, again, Disney's fault, but that community, that part of the fan base that wasn't happy with one or the other. So when it came to the Rise of Skywalker, it's like, well, let's just see what we can do. And so let's kind of get into the Rise of Skywalker, because there's a lot to really get into. So, I actually don't know where to start, because there's a lot to say. Well, first let's talk about one good thing. And the one good thing that I like is that you have Ian McDiarmid. The Emperor's back. It doesn't make sense that he's back, but you could tell that Ian McDiarmid had fun coming back to his character and all these other things. And I actually kind of like how he has, like, the red in his robe to his design, to his costume. I like the little touches of that. The red was pretty awesome. He does have great moments. Obviously, Ian McDiarmid just having a great time, and I don't know if this was their plan to put the Emperor in all along, because if Disney planned on having the Emperor be in this trilogy the whole time, I feel like you should have set up the Emperor sometime, maybe in the end, at the end of The Last Jedi, possibly could have happened, instead of like having, like, oh, we got basically Snoke here. And it kind of, like, when you look back at Snoke, it's like, well, he didn't much have a purpose. And it's like, okay, was there any difference between, was Snoke needed, or was the Emperor needed more? And you kind of don't know which one, to be honest. And I still don't know in a small sort of way, because I first, when I saw Snoke in both Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi, I thought, okay, I want to see who this guy is. I want to find out what he has. What is his, like, connection to the dark side? Why is he, like, where did he come from all of a sudden? And there was all sorts of speculations, like, oh, is he Darth Plagueis? Like, somehow Plagueis is still alive and been thriving and just been hidden in the shadows for decades until now? And then they kind of and they're just like, nope, he's dead. And now they kind of say he was cloned by the Emperor, and it's like, okay, how'd you create Snoke? Because we just see him kind of like in this weird confinery where he's just sliced in half, and it's like, okay, was Snoke supposed to be a clone of the Emperor, or was he just a creation of the Emperor? But like I said, a lot of things are just, that's kind of the biggest problem this movie has. And that as it has a lot of unanswered things. It has great moments, and it has, obviously, this being a Star Wars movie, it's going to have, like, obviously, good characters, it's going to have great visuals, fantastic puppeteering, animatronics, and practicalness, because Star Wars, like, basically, it did such a great job of doing the practical effects and the visuals since the dawn of time. So, obviously, it's going to have those things. It's going to have great performances. There's definitely a lot of other moments we'll get into in a moment. But there's a lot of unanswered things. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem thriving throughout this movie, is that this is the final, like, Star Wars movie within the saga. And we don't know for sure if we'll ever see, say, a Kenobi Star Wars story, or a Fett Star Wars story, or anything like a Star Wars story. And most likely we won't, because those will probably be the TV shows. So, with that being said, this is the final Star Wars movie, and to kind of leave things unopened feels a little weird. Like, it almost feels like, okay, we did this, and then they forgot about there's unanswered stuff they should have threw in at the end, at least. Or somewhere in between these movies with something. I don't know. Sorry, Vader. But back to the Emperor, it's great that he's back, and And like I said, I'm not sure if he really deserves to kind of be the one that's like, oh, did they really need the Emperor? Yes, I think so. But here's the thing. How the hell did he actually survive? That's one thing that's kind of left just unanswered. And sure, there's a lot of things that maybe do deserve to be unanswered. Like many, like not like in general, like there's a lot of general like movies where you have an origin that should be left alone. But in this case, we already know the Emperor's origin, but it's only a matter of, okay, how did you survive that big impact that you had in Return of the Jedi from your fall and death, and especially the fact that the Death Star just blew up and it was a goner. So how are you alive? And all these other things and stuff. It's really kind of crazy to go into. But we're going to try and get more to this. I'm going to try and get into sort of a consistent sort of process. It's just, I have a lot to really talk about. We'll come back to the Emperor for a moment because there's still a lot more to talk about. Let's just kind of go to our main characters. Our main characters, they're fine, I guess. There's many things that they don't really fully commit to and they don't fully do. They obviously try and want to build this dynamic, like a family, kind of like what the original cast did. Like, obviously, basically trying to capture that fun banter that, say, the original trilogy did with Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie, but with these four, and all these, and obviously recurring characters from the original trilogy, and you feel, and they're just kind of like, they have good moments, but they just feel like a bit of a just unhinged bickerness. I don't know. So with Rey, let's get into Rey for a moment, since don't actually, like I said, my apologies in advance, since don't have a real consistent idea of how I'm gonna review this. All I know is this is just my thoughts, me discussing things off the top of my mind, and I literally had to watch this movie twice. Because at first I wasn't sure of my opinion the first time, and the second time I'm very certain of my opinion. So with Rey, you got Rey, and you definitely, obviously Daisy Ridley's great, and the entire cast is great. Like, obviously they do good performances. It's just their characters aren't fully fleshed. Like Rey, we get a bit more of her, but here's the thing. So we find out that Rey is a Palpatine. And it's like, okay, that's something, and it kind of makes more sense because we see her do things like force healing, and we see her do things like the weird like force telepathy weird thing, that conversation she does with Kylo Ren, and she does all this other stuff like floating in the air, levitating with rocks like an instasecond, and how OP she is of a character. She doesn't take a lot of hits. She doesn't take a lot of damage to herself. She doesn't get that much hurt. And she just instantly just does things so well that you're like, she's overpowered. So when you say that, when you have her be the granddaughter of the Emperor, that kind of makes sense because it shows it shows why and how she is so powerful. And sort of like this, I guess it does give you an idea of why she has a thing with the dark side and why she drew like straight into the darkness in The Last Jedi, and it starts picking up on some things. But the big thing is that, one, when did we establish force healing and all these other force abilities in this new Star Wars movies? And technically these powers have been around since like the Star Wars Legends and in the Clone Wars and in other TV shows and other media, but it's never been explored in these movies. I mean, I guess you could kind of say Ben Kenobi force healed Luke when he was attacked by the Tusken Raiders in A New Hope, but I don't know if that was really a force heal. And other than that, has not been any other times they've explored these abilities. That's number one. Number two, when did we ever see Rey ever train to master these powers? Like, there's no way she mastered this in a nanosecond. There's just no way, even if she is the granddaughter of Darth Sidious. And getting back to Darth Sidious, where did he find the way to conceive his son, who then obviously conceived Rey. Because if you've been you've been fake death your whole time, how are you alive? And two, who did you bang? Who banged you? Like, seriously. I know that sounds really ridiculous to talk and say, but think about it a little bit. Like, are they going with the idea of, like, what he said in Revenge of the Sith about the midichlorians, how he basically was able to keep himself alive? Like, is he going by that Darth Plagueis thing he said? Did he create life just by using those midichlorians? By creating his son who married someone? Like, you don't know. And how did he all of a sudden end up in this weird other regions planet, and he's got like these like prosthetics and this crane thing shit going on for him? It's kind of like I don't know. So those are unanswered questions, and that Darth Rey thing we see in the trailers and we saw in that teaser or whatever trailer it was, it goes really nowhere. It's like this weird, it was a vision. We all knew it was going to be a vision. There was no way that they were going to make this idea that, oh yeah, Rey's going to join the dark side. She's a Sith Lord. She's going to be the Empress or Empress Palpatine or whatever the Emperor wanted from her, because he goes from basically saying, I want you dead, to I want you to join me in the dark side of the Force. We can rule the galaxy. You could be Empress and all these other things. So that kind of just happens, sort of thing. I know this review sounds very inconsistent, but I don't know if it's the Rise of Skywalker or if it's just this trilogy alone is just very inconsistent. So maybe that will make sense why this is inconsistent. But the one thing that is very consistent with this trilogy is two things, actually, which I feel like they deserve a little more attention and a little more acknowledgement. And that is, looking back a second time watching Rise of Skywalker, how complete of an arc Kylo Ren has. He definitely has an arc from beginning to end, and obviously Rian Johnson looked at The Force Awakens and this was the one thing he said, you know what, let's keep that. So that was great that he kept that as consistency. The fact of he goes from how he was in The Force Awakens, very conflicted, first being the main Knights of Ren, the main apprentice to Snoke, and that he's in the middle of that. There's still good in him, but he's obviously more in that he's in the dark side of the Sith, and he just needs that one push to make him lose all light, and then he's completely dark. And that was obviously executing Han Solo. Spoiler for The Force Awakens. And then bringing that to The Last Jedi, where now he's fully gone. He's away from his family. His past is dead. Ben Solo, in his eyes, is gone. He's no longer Ben Solo, so he's Kylo Ren. And then we see that more exploited through, obviously, from the end of The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker, that there is still hope left in him, and that there is light still somewhere. He just hasn't seen it and hasn't realized it. And while we're on the subject of the Solo Skywalker arc with Kylo Ren, Carrie Fisher, phenomenal performance throughout these trilogies, and the fact that they were able to get all these scenes together for her and they were able to finish this and wrap up this saga and wrap up this trilogy before her passing is just moving. And Ghost Han, seeing Ghost Han was so moving and so beautiful, and kind of really a great performance from Harrison Ford. He's had a great performance throughout all these Star Wars movies, but that was the very pinnacle moving moment. And I think with Leia's passing, her character passing in the Rise of Skywalker, and we find out more of like her Force sort of like abilities and the things that she's done in the past as a Jedi, and then why she doesn't use them and why this and that is perfect. And to add off with a Ghost Han sort of memory in a way, to add to Kylo's arc, really makes it really a great and amazing arc for a character. And I think Adam Driver is probably one of the best things about this trilogy. And the other consistent thing is kind of this connection that Kylo Ren and Rey have, where I see them as, although there's still some flaws and there's still some things that they should tweak on, with Rey, obviously, there's still some things we don't know that are kind of unanswered, like I said before. But the one thing that they kept was that to me, I feel like they are very neutral. They're not fully dark, they're not fully light. They're kind of in the middle. So basically you have Rey who's more towards the light, but there is still like this possibility of her being in the dark, like joining the dark side. And then Ben is fully dark, but there's still that hope and light in him. And this dyad, the Force as they called it, that they're bonded together and all these other things, and they can be with all the Jedi. And that's kind of the other thing, which is good but questionable, is when we see the Emperor meet with Kylo Ren, he tells him that I've been all the voices inside your head. Snoke, Vader, I've been manipulating you and everything. That was really cool because obviously we got to hear James Earl Jones, we got to hear Andy Serkis. But here's the thing. Since Kylo Ren was basically able to hear all the different voices of the dark side and all the Sith, and then Rey was able to hear all the voices of the Jedi, like Luke. We hear voices of, like, there's a really obviously cool scene with all the like ghost voices of Jedi past, like Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, Aayla Secura, Ahsoka Tano. You can hear her voice too. If you really hear closely, listen closely, people. You hear Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels. You hear a bunch of other Jedis. You hear obviously Anakin Skywalker is one of those voices. Luke's one of those voices. Yoda, etc. They got a whole credits of all the voices of the ghosts. It was really cool. So she's able to hear all these voices of the Jedi, and you think if she has this sort of like tendency to lean towards the dark side and kind of use anger in a way, you think the Emperor would try and manipulate her, use voices of maybe his voice, maybe use Vader's voice, maybe use Snoke's voice to manipulate her, try and do all sorts of things like that. But I guess it is whatever, it is what it is. But enough about that whole like Palpatine, Skywalker sort of situation. We'll get more into that moment later because there's still a lot to cover. We have one thing that they don't fully do with the characters or in terms of inconsistency is Finn. He is supposedly there's a possibility that he's a Force wielder. He has Force abilities. He's Force sensitive. And we see that in Force Awakens because he's able to handle himself against Kylo Ren with a lightsaber, and there's a bit of that in Rise of Skywalker, but obviously they basically put Finn's character like on hiatus and they pinned him in The Last Jedi to be like, okay, he'll just show up once or twice and not have a big purpose, to be honest. So that's unfortunate. And jokingly but seriously, it seems like they throw in a lot of love interests for Finn, like many possible lovers for him. Like you have he has a thing for Rey, it seems like. He has a thing for Rose. He has a thing for this new girl. And let's be real, people, he seems to have a bromance for Poe Dameron, okay? So yeah. I think one great thing and one good thing I could say about this movie is C-3PO has this really great moment of like his final words. I think that was kind of like heartbreaking because they're looking to find these Sith Wayfinders, even though they should have just used Sith holocrons, but I guess they decided to call them Sith Wayfinders, even though they're basically Sith holocrons, but whatever. They're looking for these Wayfinders, and there's a dagger involved, and it reads like Sith, and only C-3PO can translate it, but the only way they could do that is to basically wipe his, somehow reprogram him, but that would mean wiping his entire memories. So they wipe his memories, and before they do that, it's really a great sort of touching moment of Anthony Daniels saying, like, I'm taking one last time, looking at my friends and my family, and when I remember, and all this stuff that we'll do, and all the stuff that we did. So, hence why we see those red eyes C-3PO, that people were thinking we would see like an evil C-3PO or some sort of weird speculations going on. I don't know, but that explains that if you guys were wondering. So don't think Sith C-3PO. So that would be kind of weird. Although he does hold Chewie's bowcaster at one point, I'm thinking to myself, is he actually gonna like kick some ass? That'd be hilarious to see C-3PO kick some ass. But after this heartbreaking moment of hearing C-3PO saying his final words, they still reprogram him and give him his memories back or rememory him or something like that. And it's like, it's one of those things that you're kind of like, really? But you just go with it, sort of thing. I guess kind of like what they did with, same thing with Chewbacca. Like, they kind of do this thing of that, oh no, Chewie's dead, oh my gosh. And then they're like, wait, he's back? Like, in an instant second. They reveal, oh, he's still alive. Like, okay. All right, so I guess that just kind of happened, so you just go with it, sort of thing. Another moment for me that was just kind of like you just go with it was we finally reveal that, oh, General Hux was the spy. It's like, okay, there's a spy within the First Order, and it's like, okay, it was Hux. Okay, sure. You kind of go with it. It wasn't something like super like, oh my gosh, plot twist. Like, wait, are you sure this wasn't M. Night Shyamalan? It's not like that. You're just kind of like, sure, I suppose. Another go with it sort of moment is, I'm jumping back and forth, but just bear with me a little. Ghost Luke was great to see. Obviously, it was great. It's great to see Mark Hamill in general. It's great to just see Luke Skywalker in general and all. And you kind of, obviously, looking at it again, you kind of think to yourself, this is obviously JJ, like, retconning and really poking fun at, like, what Rian Johnson did, because Luke picks up his lightsaber and he says, this weapon deserves more respect. This is a Jedi weapon here. Even though in The Last Jedi, he chucks his lightsaber out away from the island and everything. And so I guess that was Rian Johnson going, you know what? Fuck everything else. And JJ's like, you know what? That was horrible what you did. The only thing that was missing from that scene is just a subtle look at the camera and then wink, you know? And speaking of Ghost Luke, there's a moment at the end where Ghost Luke and Ghost Leia show up to sort of look at Rey one last time in a way, and part of me is kind of like, they should have had all the Jedi ghosts just stand there and have this moment, kind of like via like Return of the Jedi sort of scene, but you just go with it sort of situation. Oh yeah, and by the way, Rey has a new lightsaber now. It's a yellow lightsaber, and you just kind of go with that. And I forgot what the different Kyber crystal means, like their symbolisms and like the rankings and all, but it's just kind of like, okay, it just all of a sudden at the end of the scene, and you're like, all right, I guess that happens. What else am I forgetting? Oh, of course, how would I forget? We have Lando here. Oh my gosh, Billy Dee Williams came back. I mean, everyone else came back for one last hoorah. I mean, everyone else, whether deceased or not. Obviously, we had Carrie Fisher. We had Peter Mayhew, late Peter Mayhew, who's Chewbacca. Obviously, Harrison Ford came back for a moment, and then Mark Hamill came back a few times, stuff like that. And all the other previous people like Ewan McGregor, Samuel Jackson, Liam Neeson, everyone else I said before, Hayden Christensen, stuff like that. I almost forgot about Billy Dee Williams, of course. He shows up, and it's cool. He's back. It's not like he does too much, but it's great to see his face. I'm not going to lie. Great to see an old face like Lando. But you kind of think and wish, like, hey, you should have at least said, like, what happened to Han? Or my condolences on both Han's death and Luke's death. So there kind of wasn't anything there, I guess. But you just go, it's just, I guess you just kind of go with it, sort of moments. There's this other character, Zori. It's like, okay, they do this thing where now Poe was a spice runner. He was a smuggler, and there's all these other unanswered questions about him all of a sudden, and they have her, and it's like, okay, you do something mysterious, but then you don't, I guess. Because she wears this helmet just to obviously be mysterious and be like Boba Fett. It's like, oh, mystery sort of thing. But then it's like, oh, she's just normal, I guess. You know? And speaking of Poe and speaking of Finn, that unanswered question of what was Finn going to say, I know it's not the most important thing, but really, what were you going to tell Rey? And I don't mean to keep bashing on the whole inconsistent thing, but this was the final movie for the Star Wars films, and to kind of leave it on like this, sort of like, it's almost a little bit messy, and kind of the trilogy is in a weird sandwich. Like we have one, like obviously Force Awakens is the bread, is the top bread, and then Last Jedi is the Rise of Skywalker is the bottom bread, and then Last Jedi is the meat, and it's kind of like a weird taste, and it's like not. I can't think of a great sandwich analogy. The point is that it's a sandwich, and it just has that weird taste in your mouth because it just doesn't fit right, or there's something missing from it, if that makes sense. And it's kind of, not that, and I'm not saying I hate this movie entirely. I like this movie. I like some things about this movie. It had some good moments. Like I said, the visuals are great. Acting's alright. It's fine. It's great. It's good. You can tell everyone puts in their all for it, and they try at least do something. But there's a lot of things that they don't fulfill on. They don't really finish, and it's kind of semi-disappointing when you have this be your last movie, and this is how you kind of end it off. You have good moments. You have great scenes, and also, the other stuff kind of is answered, but then you start creating more loopholes, and it's kind of, like I said, it just doesn't really mesh well. It's kind of like if you're sewing something, and next thing you know, you're all of a sudden, you're sewing this one line, or you're drawing this one, like, circle, and then you just all of a sudden zigzag it. It's just kind of like where'd that come from all of a sudden, if any of this is making sense. And I feel like both The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker have, like, these moments of, like, oh, you remember this? Well, we're not doing that anymore. Oh, yeah, you remember the Knights of Ren? Yes, the Knights of Ren. Ooh, what do they do? Jack shit, honestly. They really do nothing for this movie, or really don't do anything whatsoever, to be honest. So they're just kind of like, you know what? You remember those guys? Forget that. You remember Captain Phasma? Forget her. Because honestly, it took me literally the first the first viewing of Rise of Skywalker, I thought to myself, I was like, what happened to Captain Phasma? Like, I get it, she wasn't the most important character, and she was underutilized and just kind of there in The Last Jedi, but and very just, like I said, underused. But where the hell did she go? And there's all of a sudden this new, like, supreme, like, admiral, lieutenant guy played by Richard E. Grant, and it's like, okay, sweet, Richard E. Grant's a good actor, but like all of a sudden they just throw in this character like, oh yeah, he's been serving the Emperor for years now, and yeah, I don't know. And that epic spaceship scene, that final showdown with Rey and Palpatine, feels very familiar, as if this happened, I think, in another movie. I can't remember what movie it was, but I recall it being in another movie that came out in 2019 with the exact same ideal motivation. I can't seem to think of it, honestly, guys. Overall, this movie has great potential, and it does have great potential. It just has a lot of loops that just hasn't fully tied yet. And it's kind of unfortunate when, one, you can predict that Rey is going to be related to the Emperor before the movie even does it, and two, how it just ends off like this. But did I enjoy the movie? Yes, I think I did enjoy this movie a lot more the first time than I did the second time, to be honest, because I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to take a second viewing at this, because at first, I wasn't too sure of my opinion. I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, I was looking like, after my first viewing, I went and thought of like, okay, talking to different people and looking at different reviews on people's different perspectives, and I thought to myself, I was like, maybe I should try a second viewing of this movie. Try not to like think as much. Maybe try and turn off my brain, because with movies you want to try and escape, and you want to obviously enjoy everything and try and obviously it just give you that good experience, a full experience, and just how movies just leave an impact on you. And just have fun with it. And like I said, did I have fun with it? Yeah, I did the first viewing, and even the first and second viewing, it's hard for me to kind of it's hard for me to ignore all those little things that they left unopened, unwrapped, and all those other things. It's kind of like if you give someone a present and it's not fully wrapped. It's nice, but it's just, you don't have a finished product, and you can tell that it doesn't feel finished. There's something missing to it. Like I said with that whole whatever random sandwich thing I was trying to go for, honestly. But as for the third new Star Wars trilogy goes, I don't know what to say, because like as that aspect, you could have obviously with The Last Jedi done things differently, and maybe if J.J. Abrams had taken full control of all three films, maybe it would have a better consistency, or maybe have better creativity, because I feel like, obviously, like I said, J.J. had a vision, and then obviously he left once Rian Johnson stepped in. Now there's a different vision going on, and it's just, I don't know. But then again, you can view this trilogy as if you enjoy this trilogy, fine, that's good, because more power to you. The fact that you're able to like this trilogy, because like I said, I like The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi I'm mixed about, and like The Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi for me has many things good for it and going for it. It just leaves a lot of things underwhelming and unperformed, to be honest. And did I at least enjoy it? Like I said, did I at least enjoy it? Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, I have great moments, and I think there's good moments in The Rise of Skywalker. And as a third trilogy to this new trilogy goes, the third and final film, and in terms of this being the last Skywalker, Star Wars saga movie, it wraps up things, but it's just kind of, like I said, underwhelming, and just kind of just. It's very hard to just sit with the idea that this is kind of how we end it. It doesn't really put things nicely in a bow, and it's not like they're going to do another movie. If Disney and Star Wars had planned this maybe a little bit better and said, hey, we'll do The Rise of Skywalker, then we'll do maybe another one, I don't mind them doing a 10th movie. I kind of partially in my mind, I thought, they could maybe do a 10th film. I mean, it wouldn't seem right, because I get it. You want to keep the trilogy, idea, keep it going, like a pattern, because obviously we have the original trilogy, we have the prequel trilogy, and we have this new trilogy. But I wouldn't have minded if they decided, you know what, maybe when they were in production of Rise of Skywalker, they're like, you know what, let's do a 10th movie. I wouldn't mind a quadrilogy for Star Wars. For this new trilogy or quadrilogy, this would be the first quadrilogy in Star Wars, and at least it wouldn't end off on an odd number, if that helps any better. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen anytime soon, and there are moments I feel like they are leaving things open for another thing, but I don't see that happening, to be honest, guys. So I think overall, like I said, I like this movie, but I don't like this movie. So I think I'm going to give The Rise of Skywalker, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, a C. Maybe I'll give it a C+, maybe. But I'm thinking, to be at least fair, I'll give it a C. So there you go, guys. But if you guys like this movie, let me know, what did you love or what did you like about this movie, and do you like this new trilogy? Are you a fan of this new trilogy? Do you not like this trilogy? What do you think should have been different? What should have stood the stand? What should have been different? Should they have done all these things? Let me know in the comments. Feel free to express yourself, and let's do it in a respectful way, as always. Keep things respectful and keep things nice and polite. But like I said, let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please smash that button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I do awesome videos every day, if not every week. And make sure you ring that bell to be notified of new videos, new content every day, if not every week. And leave your suggestions down below for requests, for reviews, TV shows, video games, top 10s, live streams, Q&As, comics, you name it, top 10s, movie news, awesome news, whatever. Leave your suggestions on what I should cover next, and I'll look into that, and I'll look to doing so. Like I said before, I'll say it again. I am technically recording this Saturday, so this is May 2nd, but this will be up on May 4th. So I hope you guys have a happy May the 4th be with you. I figured I'd upload this on the 4th, because not only is it a Star Wars movie, it's May the 4th. Rise of Skywalker actually comes out on Disney Plus that day, or something like that. Plus, be a little more fitting. And maybe I'll have something, depending on whatever that's gonna happen, I may have something for you guys Saturday recorded, so to just upload that day, or I may not. We'll see what happens. Depending on we'll see. But I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please share as well. Make sure you also share these videos as well. I appreciate that a ton. I'm going to be working on, not only will I be working on requests that you guys have given me, but I'll also be working on other suggestions and other things that I have in mind and planned for my my channel. I have a few reviews I might cover. I have a top 10 idea for something. I'll give more details on that stuff sooner and later. I might do some more gaming stuff. We'll see what happens. Just at least kind of keep my channel going, keep it spreading. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and may the Force be with you always.